Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I got to tell you something, people. A lot of times people say, how do you get your guests, Steve? And, I get some through referrals. Actors and musicians will refer me to people. And sometimes I go through PR people and managers. And sometimes I just reach out to people. Because Joanne and I were watching this show called His and Hers. We always try to find something we like together. And I knew she would like it. And we're watching it, and I see the one gentleman. I'm like, that guy's been in so much stuff. I got to get him on my show. So what I do is I go out, I scour, I find him on Facebook, I send him a message, and boom, he's on my show. And he's got a great IMDb page. I think it's 185 credits or something like that, which is just phenomenal. And my guest is Mike Pniewski. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Steve. I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. No, it's funny. His and Hers was one of those shows. It was really good, and it's hard right now to pick shows because there's so many different shows. So I always like to put on Facebook, watch this show and things like that. Has it gotten really good reaction? I mean, have you heard people reaching out to you and saying it's a great show? I mean, what's it like to be an actor in it's a really solid show?
Thank you. Yeah, it's it's a great, terrific show. I'm very proud of it. And the reaction's been incredible. I've been getting messages from all over the place. The people that are watching it are coming from near and far. And I've even seen there's some services that do ratings or eyeballs on streaming shows. And there was a point where His and Hers was the most watched streaming show across all platforms, not just Netflix. And so, yeah, the reaction's been great. And I've gotten a lot of people that, for people who haven't seen it yet, they're kind of blown away by the ending because it's got a couple of big twists at the end. Yeah, it's a real crowd pleaser. And I think it helps that it's only 6 episodes and then so somebody can binge it in a whole day. Yeah, the reaction's been awesome.
See, the thing that was bad for me was I'm the type that I want to binge it in a whole day, but my wife likes to save it. So, we watched 2 episodes, and then I'm like, well, we got to watch it. And she's like, well, I have something else. So it was great. So now, did you have to audition for that part, or did you get offered that part? How did you get that part?
No, I read for it. I read for it like everybody else. I did my self-tape and put it in there, and it worked out. And, yeah, that and I guess my resume and everything else, my reel and stuff, got offered the gig. Didn't meet anybody till the table read, and it was great. It was a great experience. I had not worked with Tessa before, but she was wonderful. I really enjoyed working with her. She's a great lady. Nice bunch of people, good crew, and it was here at home. It was here in Atlanta, so it was nice to work at home. I don't get to work at home a lot, ironically, even with all the work here.
So, you said you had to read for it and use self-tape. And I always like to ask actors who have been in the game for a long time. You've been in for a long time. You guys, I know you went to school out west and you were in the Groundlings. So you're used to stage and you're used to that training. And you're used to the days where you go in the room and where you get the vibe and you can tell right off the bat if you screw something up, they'll let you do it again. At this part in your career, because everyone's auditioning, do you like self-taping more? Do you miss the room, or do you miss the room? Because a lot of times some people they're different because they said self-tape, you can do it as much as you want, but then also you might become a little too of a perfectionist. But in the room, you feel that energy and you can get the feedback. What do you like better? Because you've been in the game for a long time.
I like the room. I like the energy of being with people. I like the feedback and the interaction that you get in the room. And the thing is that, for those of us who've been around for a while, once you get in the room, even before you start reading the material, you're able to start scoring points with people because of your work, people that we know in common, other shows we've worked on, stuff of mine they've seen, where I went to school, where I grew up. And so we're building connection, we're building relationship, we're building rapport before I ever start reading. And, when you've been around long enough, you get really good at that. You know how to take the room. And then that makes you more comfortable so that when it is time to do it, you just take off and go. And, I like to think myself as collaborative. And so I always appreciate some feedback and some direction. And sometimes because one of the downsides of self-tape is you don't get all the background. You don't get all the backstory. But when you're in the room, if you have a question about let's say, a reference to an event or pronunciation of a certain term that's important to the character. When you're doing a self-tape, oftentimes you have nobody to ask. But at least if you can go in the room, you can clarify all that, so that once you're in the moment, I mean, you're able to truly just be in the moment. So I miss that interaction, and I also miss being able to take advantage of doing this for over 40 years. And when I walk into a room, there's some heft with that. There's some weight with that. I don't get that with the self-tape. Now, the upside of self-tape is, I get to control a little more how I present it, how I do it. I always make a point never to do it too many times. I think that's a waste of time. But at least I can control it, and I can do something that I think is fun, that I think is entertaining, that I would be proud to show anywhere. And so it's nice to have that kind of control. But I do miss the connection and the interaction you can build in the room.
Well, I also think, in the room, as you said, the connection, and a lot of times casting directors, and I hear the story all the time, they see you and you're not right for a part, but like 2 years down the road, they'd be like, oh my God, you know who'd be good for this part? Mike. And so you don't get that.
Or even something else in the same show. Say, that was great, but hey, could you take this outside, prep this, come back in a little bit and read this too? Sure, I'll do that. So you don't get that opportunity either.
Now, has that ever happened to you where you read for something on a show and then they turned around and they gave you a different part?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sometimes it whatever reason, it's not a good fit. And that's happened. And that's not a big deal. I mean, hey, gig's a gig.
So you grew up in Southern California. What made you decide to become an actor? Was it were you at a young age did you want to act? I mean, everyone has different stories. I was doing stand-up comedy for 9 years, and I dabbled in it again. But I think when I was little, I wanted to be like a sportscaster. I wanted to do something, and my passions changed. And then in high school, I made people laugh, but I wasn't a class clown. And I was just like, and I finally came to my fruition after college, and I started doing comedy. So I think the seeds were planted early. Like the first time I heard a Lenny Bruce album, which my parents had no idea who Lenny Bruce was, and I shouldn't have been listening to it. So it was in me. So was it in you at a young age, or what was your path to deciding to become an actor?
Well, I'll try to give it the shortest version possible. My thing was I wanted to be an athlete when I was a kid. I was never really good at anything, but by the time I graduated high school, I had earned a scholarship to go to UCLA to study sports medicine, because I was going to go into sports medicine because at least I could be around sports, and I enjoyed that kind of work. Well, then I discovered part of the curriculum was having to dissect human cadavers, and that's not for me, not my thing. And so then I had to shift gears. I had to find something else. Wasn't doing that great in school, so I had to find something to be able to keep me there and take advantage of the opportunity. And I had an opportunity when I was in high school. I did a play, had an amazing experience. And for whatever reason, because of circumstances at the time, that just kept popping in my head as I'm trying to figure out what's next. And eventually, through a lot of soul searching, a lot of talking, a lot of pondering the future, I decided to take the shot and changed my major. Eventually ended up getting a degree in theater. Thankfully, I've been moving forward ever since.
So I know I read that you were involved in the Groundlings. When did that come about, and who was in the Groundlings at that time?
I took classes there. I was never a performer there, and I have to admit, shamefully, that I didn't see a show there at the time when I was taking class. But I loved it. When I was a young actor, one of the things that struck me as I was starting to pursue things was I realized that fear would be my biggest enemy. So every opportunity I had to sort of chop away at that and get rid of whatever I was afraid of, I took it. And what started to happen as I was auditioning, and this may have happened to you too, when you go into the room, they give you the pages, but then oftentimes they'll want you to riff a little bit afterwards, or maybe that there's not a lot of dialogue. So the director might want to, play, we'll start it that way, and then we'll just kind of improvise a little bit here and there. And so I realized, and I wasn't good at it. And I realized, okay, I got to get good at it. And at that time in LA, and probably still today, the only place to go is the Groundlings. So I took a class and I loved it, and I got really good at it. And I ended up using it a lot in my auditions going forward for commercials, for TV, film, whatever. And it made things a lot of fun. And I think one of the great things about improv is it really makes you a great listener. And as an actor, that is one of the most significant things you have to be good at, is being a good listener. And so I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. And then, there's been a few times even when we're working where we get a chance to play off some things, and it's good to be able to be quick on your feet, and they always like that.
Now, you get out there. It's funny. I love looking, like, you got been around for a long time. I love to look at the old IMDb because you see all these shows that I watch. I'm 61, so I've been around for a long time, and I've seen so many of these shows. So I see like Hill Street Blues and Rituals, Hardcastle, McCormick. What was your first gig that you remember? Like, because you were probably out there auditioning. I don't know how long it took you to get an agent, but did you get an agent quick? And what was your first gig that maybe helped you get your SAG card?
I got really fortunate in that when I was still in school at UCLA, I was doing a play, and a couple of agents came to see me. I had done, back in the day, for those of us that are old enough to remember, doing mass mailings. I did a mass mailing, like over 120-something agents, and I think I got one to come and see me. And, they were going to take me on. But their deal was, and I really appreciated this, said, we want you to finish school. So we're not going to start sending you out till you're done. So once I was done, I could go out and start auditioning. And my first professional job was Hardcastle and McCormick. And I was talking, somebody asked me about this the other day. And I still remember the one line that I had, which, as you get older, is all the things you don't remember anymore. I remember that. I had one line.
What was it?
I was a cop, and it was at the wrap-up of the show. They busted these people on a boat, and they were clearing off the boat, and Brian Keith is standing on the dock, and he yells up to the boat, is everybody out? And I'm this cop, and I step to the edge of the boat, and I say, except for the woman. That was my introduction to the business.
See, that's awesome that you remember that, because it is so funny. It's so important, because when I interview musicians, I ask, when's the first time you've heard your own song? And they always remember. I mean, they can play, but they always remember, I was driving down Sunset and a car next to me played it. For you remember it. So when you get that first role under your belt, does it gain your confidence, or did you start getting booking a lot, or were you going through some rejection right after that?
I think there was a little rhythm that picked up, but still it's the same kind of thing that most actors face. You are subject to a lot of rejection. I think I booked a couple of things, one after the other. My second gig was Beverly Hills Cop, which was pretty awesome. But I knocked around for a while. I had a day job, did what I could to keep the lights on, and took classes at night. And did what a lot of people do, is you hone your craft and you try to find places to work. I think I did a little Equity Waiver Theater in L.A. And, I just beat the streets and went after it.
So you were working, as I said, there's so many things you've been on, and it's just amazing. Matlock and just, Coach and all these shows, 21 Jump Street, just all these great shows, and it's a matter of, when you're working, and I know it's a hard job, and back then, I think when you're a guest star, you got paid a little more than you do now. I've always heard that from everyone. The structure has changed a little bit, but you're working, and so when do you really start feeling like you're hitting your stride, when you feel like you're at your game? Because it's like anything, we have to learn. When I started doing comedy, I didn't know what I was doing. Now, I only get performances occasionally, but I know what I'm doing. I've been away for a long time, but it comes back to me. And I hit my stride, so I know what material works. So I had that confidence. Were you one of these people who was always learning, or do you feel like you hit your stride maybe after 5 or 10 years where you really felt comfortable in your own skin?
It's kind of hard to pinpoint. I always feel like I'm a work in progress. I'm always trying to learn something from other actors. We all borrow from each other, and no shame in that. I'm always trying to learn a new way, a new spin to try to keep it fresh. Um, because, that's one of the things I think that keeps me working is I always feel like I'm willing to learn new things, try new things. I like working with young actors, with bringing that fresh new energy and all of that. Um, I would say I probably started feeling a little more confident when I started recurring on some of these shows several years ago. That started to make me believe, like, okay, they don't bring back just anybody. And then, I started to hear I got a lot of compliments and feedback about, what, we can always count on you. You're one guy that I got to deal with all these other people and whatever, but I know that you're going to deliver, you're going to hit the mark, you're not going to cost me time, and you're going to deliver a solid performance. And so I think once that started to happen, where shows were bringing me back, I started to feel a little more secure. But I don't know that you ever totally feel secure as an actor. I think it's part of the gig. It's part of why we do this, is trying to continue to find that place where we get that rush, that feel of connection, that place where you get acceptance and you feel like you're creating something that matters to people. And so there's ups and downs to that. I think mostly for me it's been positive because it keeps me learning and it keeps me always trying to find ways to keep my work fresh.
Now, earlier in your career, during pilot season, were you getting opportunities for pilots? Because some people got them and some people didn't. What is that like? What is the whole process? I mean, I can think, and I've talked to a lot of actors who are like, my pilot didn't get picked up. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? You got a pilot. I mean, you know how many people people go to LA, people get one line. People, I remember someone posted on Facebook, I got my first pilot, and it was on YouTube. And I'm like, well, it's not really a pilot. It is, but it's like, it was one of these things. It was, how it is. But what was it like for you and pilots? I mean, did you have a bunch of pilots or one or two, or what was that experience for you?
I've a couple. I'm trying to go back because, pilot season's not what it used to be. So I got to sort of dig back in the old memory banks. But, you knock around and you get close on a lot of things. For me, my goal has always been to be a series regular. I've never had a contract. I've recurred on dozens of shows, but never been a recurring contract or a contracted series regular. So yeah, pilot season was always a big deal. And I got out a lot, did a couple, got close on a lot. Nothing ever hit. But again, it's the big leagues for all of us. And so all those February months to early March for all those years that I spent out in LA, even when I moved here to Atlanta, you knocked around, you got in when you could, you took your shot, and sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't.
Now, when your pilot gets passed on, I just wonder, do you see the bright side that you got a pilot, or do you feel like, oh crap, what did I do wrong? Because I think a lot of actors and anyone creative, we sort of dwell on, not the negativity, but we always I talk to actors who are successful, they're still always worrying about the next job. So when you get a pilot, is it something that you actually can sit there and feel the accomplishment? Because like I said, it's such a big accomplishment. But then there's that disappointment because, if that books and it runs for 3 years or 4 years, your life has changed. It's like people say, it's like you hit the lottery. So what is the feeling for an actor when that pilot doesn't get picked up? Do you feel, of course you're not happy, but do you feel a sense of rejection? And does it frustrate you? Or do you sit there and go, I got this. It didn't get picked up, but that means I'm doing something right.
Well, yeah, it's a combination of that. Definitely, I've always been one to err on the side of being positive and always being grateful. Because look, there are guys and gals out there who would give a limb for the career that I have. And so I always got to remember that in spite of what I feel might be a disappointment or a frustration or a loss, it's still more of a win than a lot of people get the chance to get. So I always try to focus on the positive about it. And in all those experiences, I got to work with great people. I had a good experience, had a good time. I did a pilot for Tom Selleck and we shot it in Hawaii. So if anybody bitches about that, just tell them to shut up. You know, that was a great experience. And Stanley Tucci was the lead. It was a great, great time. And so I've had a lot of experiences like that. Yeah, it didn't get picked up. And yeah, other things didn't get picked up. But I guess I'm always one to sort of feel like I'm just always damn glad to be here, because I know there were probably a couple, 300 guys who didn't get this gig, who probably a lot of them could have done it. Because that's the thing I don't think people really understand about this business, is it's not that people don't get jobs because they're not good. There's a lot of really good people out there. But the opportunity, it's only one role. And I've been in rooms back when you go in the room and you walk in for the final callback, and I see all these faces and I think, oh shit, any of these guys would be great. They'd be fantastic. So what I started to do when that started to happen was, geez, I just feel glad to be in this group of guys. These guys are all great. So I'm going to go in there and do my thing. And, you know, whatever happens, happens. So I always try to look at it as a win, because wins are so hard to get in this business. And if you work, and you've seen this too, where people get too quickly sucked into the vortex of rejection and sadness and disappointment, even when they got cast in something, maybe made some good dough, but yeah, it's not going to go past the pilot. Okay, but hey, you know, you got the chance to work with so-and-so. You made 25 grand on the pilot. Okay, you're probably going to qualify for health insurance because of that. You know, whatever it is, there's a lot of wins to be taken, because I've always believed that you learn as much from the positive as you do from the negative. So you gotta take it all, and don't get in the habit of being self-destructive, because God, actors can self-sabotage till no tomorrow. And I've seen a lot of really good actors do that, which is kind of unfortunate. So I always try to pride myself not to do that, focus on the positive, always be grateful. Gratitude's a very powerful emotion. And, you know, just look for the next gig. And certainly I'm human. So I'll probably give myself a few hours to, you know, complain a little bit, be disappointed, frustrated. Shit, I could have lived in Hawaii for 4 years. That would have sucked. You know, my wife was so disappointed. But anyway, you know, all in all, it's all good, man. I'm the luckiest guy on the planet.
I want to talk more about your on-screen roles, but when I was going on your resume, I didn't know you were such a big voiceover guy. When did you, commercial voices, when did you listened to your reel, when did you get into that? Because, you know, that's one of the things that it's such a, and everyone I know who does it, they say it's such a great gig. Because, you know, I mean, and now people do it in their
it's awesome.
home studio. But what got you into that, and tell me some of the work you've done.
Well, okay. I have to contextualize this, because I got into voiceovers after I moved here to Atlanta. And this is before the 2000 commercial strike. Everything changed for voiceover after the commercial strike. And eventually, and then when COVID happened, now everybody's got to have their own home studio. And I don't have that. I didn't work enough to justify that. But I had a period there, probably mostly through the 90s, where, yeah, I knocked off a bunch of stuff. I did a lot of stuff here for the Georgia Lottery. I did, God, it goes back so far. I did a lot of really cool stuff, and it was always really fun. And a lot of the things I got to do were very creative, and it was a good time. But, you know, it was just a chance where I was with a certain agent for a little while here, and we decided that, you know, I'd try it, and had gotten enough success with the on-camera stuff that I'd give it a shot. And I had some friends who were doing it, and I think I took a couple of classes, put a reel together, and you know, little by little started booking stuff. But it's great fun. It's great work if you can get it.
Now, it's funny, as I say, I go back to IMDb and you see Law & Order. And you were on Law & Order 3 times, 3 different characters. And that's what you know, it's funny, they used to do TV like that. You know, they used to sit there, like Diane Neal was on the show. She played someone on Law & Order SVU who was the bad woman. And then a few years later, she cast as a series regular as the assistant DA. So for you, I mean, and I think, once again, if you really follow actors, you remember, but it's not like a big guest starring role. What was your experience in Law & Order? I mean, because you did 3 times. I mean, and then you ended up being on Criminal Intent.
And I did I did several of the Law & Order shows I did. I did The Mothership. I did Criminal Intent. I recurred on Criminal Intent as the chief of D's. I did SVU. I did his show Conviction. That was it was a one-season show. I did FBI, and now I just did Chicago Med. Dick Wolf's been very good to me. But, he also is the kind of guy where, and this happened on Law & Order, where one season I played one character, and then the very next season, I think I came back as the Army colonel testifying in full dress uniform. Totally different character, but that's just the way he thinks, and it's the way he works, because his perspective is, we're actors, we're playing characters. It's not supposed to be that's the real person. And so he didn't worry so much about the time or the time passage in that respect, because it's each show is a new show.
Now, Criminal Intent, I loved. Vincent D'Onofrio was great in that, and Catherine Irby.
It was
great.
A good time.
So when you got that, did you know right off the bat there'd be a little bit of a recurring, or did that expand as you were on the show? Because sometimes, you go in and they go, okay, this is for 12 episodes, or they go, okay, this is one, it may lead to 3. Tell me about how that character developed.
Well, I had done a few of the Dick Wolf shows over the years, and I got to know a lot of his team. And one of the guys in particular, John Roman, who was the showrunner on Criminal Intent, he lives here in Atlanta, but he would fly back and forth to work in New York. And I was driving around somewhere, and he called me. I'm in my car, and he said, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing?" I said, I was going to the store. So he said, "Look, so we're in the room here. We're sitting around. We're talking about this character, this chief of D's on Criminal Intent. He's going to be around for a few episodes, and we were thinking of you. You want to do it?" And then he gave me some dates, and I said, "Give me a second." And I just did one of those where I just took the phone and just, "Yeah, you know what? I'm free. Yeah, sure. Let's do it." That was really cool. That was one of those few times where I did not have to audition. But, in a way I kind of did, because I'd worked with these guys several times on their other shows. And so, yeah, that's how that happened. And that was really fun. Vincent is a wonderful actor, and Katie Irby was on that show, and then Eric Bogosian, who is a great guy and a terrific actor, too. I just worked with him again on a movie called Reptile. That was a good time.
What is it like when you get in the room? I mean, not in the room, on the set with, like, as you said, Bogosian, who, his one-man show was huge. I mean, he's been quite the artist. I mean, he's an amazing. And you get in the room with, like, him and a D'Onofrio and an Irby. As an actor, does that make you feel like you're somewhat, in the big leagues? Like you're working, they're good. The script is good. Does that make it easier for you, or does that get you a little nervous, like, because you really have to punch it home, where I'm sure you always do punch it home, but when there, it's like, this for you, it must be great because it's what it's all about.
No, absolutely. It's more the latter. When I was younger, I would get very nervous in those situations. But over time, and this is one of the things I learned also as a young actor, somebody told me this was, you're there because we want you. You're there for a reason. We didn't just hire the other guy or the next guy. We hired you because we want you. So we want you to be there. So relax. You're good. And feel free to bring it. Bring your stuff. Bring your talent. Bring your ideas. And just free yourself up. So what evolved for me is when that happened, and I knew that, there's going to be really quality actors on this show, and some of them I know their reputations or I'd worked with them before or whatever. And actually, I got excited because I thought, well, this is going to be cool. So what it did for me was it drove me to show up prepared, ready, knew my lines, knew the backstory, knew the history, had an idea what to do, and I had some ideas in my head of what I might want to try, thoughts about the character. And so for me, it actually made it a little more fun, and I started to relish the experience more instead of fear it. And I think that made me a better actor.
Well, also you were on Drop Dead Diva, which my wife started watching that after it was already out, and I would walk by and she would watch it. And it turns out I know Lex Medlin. He's done my show twice, and Lex was on the show for a while. Yeah. Lex is such a wonderful guy, and I felt so bad for him when CSI Vegas, he finally got that show, and the strike happened, and then it got canceled. And it just, because it's one of the things, I'm sure as an actor you go, well, I'm getting a CSI. Oh, that's going to run forever. But my wife watched that show, and I watched it. It was a very good show. Was it an experience like that for? Because it's not as you're coming off a Criminal Intent, which is a little harder hitting, and some of your acting. But this was it made a feel good show. It was not mentally heavy lifting. What is that like for an actor when you go to a show like that? Because it is work, but it's completely the opposite of what you were doing.
Well, I mean, you going into it, you have to sort of adjust your point of view to understand that that's what it is, and to try to do your best to be alive in that moment, in that space, in that dynamic, whatever it is. So it's a little different. And that's one of the things I've always liked about being an actor is that no 2 days are the same. And so being on this different set was kind of exciting, and that the point of view and the different thematic stuff of that material was different than a cop show or something like that. But it was still fun, and then that show was shot here in Atlanta, so it was a chance to work at home, which I always appreciate. And they were a nice bunch of people, and I had a good time.
Now, one show you were also on, 5 episodes, which was a great show, which didn't get the attention it should have, was *Halt and Catch Fire*, and that was such a good show. It's one of those things, and I hate that when you watch a show, you find a show, and it's great, and it's not social media wasn't as big then. There was but when you sit there and you go, oh man, have you seen *Halt and Catch Fire*? People are like, what? And I had interviewed Toby Huss years ago when my show first started. His friends I knew, and he's such a good actor. But what was that show like? Because once again, it was one of those things where it's so well written and sort of and dark, and it wasn't like the production value wasn't like this cinematic. It was just like it fit perfectly. What is it like when you go on a set like that? Did you have fun doing that show? Did you dig your character?
Oh, I loved it. I really loved that show because it was just so different. And you're right, it was really kind of gritty and edgy, and it all started to feel a little like guerrilla filmmaking, and that we're trying to piece all these pieces together, and with the theme of the show and these guys trying to build this company in the fledgling days of computer businesses and stuff, and what a great bunch of actors, Lee Pace and Scoot and Mackenzie, and I just had so much fun working with them, and the character I played was so fun. I had a great time on that show, and you're right, it was really well written, really smart, and I had a great time, and that shot here too, so that was a real special treat.
Now, when you say your character was so fun, what made it fun to you? Because, it's sometimes like, everyone, fun's a different definition, and you're acting and you love a character, of course it's going to be fun. But for you personally, what made it fun? Because you've played a lot of great characters.
Well, what was really fun for me about that guy is that he had a serious side because he was like the accountant money guy within the thing, but he had this fascination with what Lee and Scoot's characters were doing, and you could tell that as much as he seemed to be kind of buttoned up, kind of tight, there was part of him that kind of relished the danger, and I think that's sort of why that character gravitated to Mackenzie's character, the young girl, because she was a total rebel, but she was really smart, probably arguably the smartest one of all of us. And so there was a sort of a rush that he got out of the danger of it, which a guy like that, who's kind of nerdy and number-headed guy, doesn't ever get to experience. And so that made it really fun.
It's great, Now, also, let's talk about The Good Wife. Because, it's funny. Julia Margulies, man, she's one of those people who doesn't get the recognition. I mean, first of all, she was on ER for 80 years? And then she's on The Good Wife. I mean, she's constantly she's been in stuff in between them. But no one ever goes, man, that's all you do. You never hear people go, Julia Margulies. And she's so good at everything she does. And she's had such a lengthy career. It's like her and Connie Britton. They're like, they constantly work they make great decisions. So I didn't watch The Good Wife, but I'm going to be honest with you. When did you come on? Was that an audition? And then how was your, because you're on there for 13 episodes. How did that start building up?
Yeah, that was an audition. I did go up to New York to read for it because the word was that this was going to be a recurring gig and they were going to cast it in the room. I couldn't send a tape. So I had to be there. And, the reputation of the show at that time, even though it wasn't on very long yet, was excellent. I want to say it was 2010 was my first episode on The Good Wife. And the great writing. The Kings, Robert and Michelle King, were lovely people, very kind to me. And I had a great time working on that show. And Juliano's fantastic. You may have talked to people about being number one on the call sheet. There's a lot that goes with that, and it's even tougher for a woman. But she was great. She was a pro, but she was kind. She was available. She was easy to be around. But the cool thing about that is that she's going to show up ready, and you better show up ready, or she's going to steamroll right over you because she's good. So that was really fun, and I enjoyed working with her. I enjoyed everybody on that show. And after a while, they introduced Eli Gold, Alan Cummings' character. Alan and I did a lot of stuff together, and God, he is just not only a fabulous actor, as we all know, but just one of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met in this business. And he and I had just had some great times together, and they wrote such crazy stuff for us because we were always going at each other. He was this high-paid political operative guy, and I was the head of the Illinois Democratic Party. And we were always going at each other, up until the point when my character met his end. It was a great ride. I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
Now, when you were going at each other, and you said there was great writing, did you get a chance to do some improv? Or sometimes, I know people have worked with the Coen brothers who said, you stay on the script. You don't venture, you don't go off. Did you get to improv with Alan? Did they give you that leeway?
A little bit, not a lot. Television's a little tighter, typically, especially network television. But a little bit, whenever it felt right, and it was great. Alan's, I adore him, really do.
Now, what's it like when you go on a set like that, where the show is a success? It's going for a few seasons. As you said, the number one on a sheet is there giving, good person. The crew knows they have jobs for the next 1 or 2 years. Is it such a relief? Because I'm sure you've had stories where you go on the set where just everyone's pissed because they know it's getting canceled or they know it's the only season. How, for an actor, how is it just to go in? The feeling just must be great because everyone's there and they know they have job security.
Oh, it's delightful. It's wonderful. It's like a playground, because it's all fun and it's. I hate to use the word safe, but everybody feels at ease with themselves. There isn't that sort of pressure, and honestly, on the really, really good shows, the really successful shows, they're that successful partly because there isn't that pressure, because the people are all supported and they're all empowered to bring the best of what they got, and they got really talented people there. So it's totally delightful. But I have been on the opposite. In fact, there was one show, and I can't remember the name of it. I've been around for a while. When the day I showed up to work, they got canceled, and we had to finish the episode. But it's a long time ago. I can't remember the name of the show, but. Happy Set is a beautiful place to be, and number ones. I remember working. I don't mean to name drop, but I will. I worked with Taylor Hackford, and we had a conversation about what he called set leaders, and the people at the top of the call sheet are a set leader, because they literally set the tone for the spirit and the energy and the commitment that everybody around them is giving, and it all trickles down. And the number ones that I've worked with have been terrific. Juliana, Taya Leone, Monica Raymond, Tessa Thompson on His and Hers. Some wonderful women who are terrific number ones, who set a great tone for everybody and really empowered everybody to do their best.
Well, I think the number one, you're a leader. It's like that's why people say Mark Harmon on NCIS. They said he was a leader.
He was great. I worked with him too. He was terrific.
And I think about though, what people forget is Mark Harmon was quarterback for UCLA. So he's had that lead. When you're a quarterback, you're a leader. So it's sort of the same thing. Being in playing in the Rose Bowl in front of 100,000 people as to going to a set. And I think it's something that you have to be a leader. I've talked to, the guys from Cold Case. They say Catherine Morris was a great number one. Allie Walker was on the show. She's one of the first female number ones that, when there wasn't a lot of numbers. And, and they all seem to have this good leadership quality. I think it's important because you are the number, as you said, you're number one. So you mentioned Tia Leone, Madam Secretary. Did you have to audition or did they know you or how did you get that role?
No, I had to audition and I went, that was another one where they're going to cast it in the room. Can't send a tape. You got to come to New York. But it was a heavy recurring gig. It was the pilot. This character was going to start in the pilot and going to be around for as long as the show was around. So I knew it was a great opportunity. And, you can't go wrong when Morgan Freeman is one of the executive producers. So it was well worth it. And there was another great ride with a great bunch of people, a fabulous cast, a fabulous crew. We had a great crew on that show, just great people. Really fun to be around, but boy, they knew their stuff, man. They delivered. That was a good time.
How was Tia Leone in between takes? Because my first introduction was The Naked Truth, which was a comedy. She was the goofball, she was the Goldie Hawn type. She was physical, she was funny, she was cute. But now she's playing a serious role, which once again, you're actors, you can do it all. But what was it like off camera? Was she somewhat like she was on Naked Truth?
Totally cool. Sometimes it would be a little goofy. There wouldn't be as much of that because of the nature of the show, but she was real easy to be around. Very warm, very friendly, very fun, very kind. Really, really kind. Her and Tim. I was so happy when it worked out for them because those are two really good humans. She was lovely, and she was a great number one.
Now, then you also were on The Good Fight. So that's, once again, you played a character. So did that come out of nowhere, or did you know something was coming up, or how did that, because you played the same character from you played earlier. I mean, that must be a little slice of ice cream on top of cake.
That was the spinoff of The Good Wife that went to Paramount Plus. So the character that I played on The Good Wife appeared on The Good Fight. It was the same character.
Right. Because
they were all still in Chicago. It was still a Chicago law firm. And so, the character lived on. I did several more episodes on there once The Good Wife ended, that doesn't ever happen. So that was a great treat because I really enjoyed that character. Got to do a lot of fun things. And, got to work with Alan a lot more, which was a lot of fun.
Now, Hightown is going off, I believe, Netflix. And I never get that. I never understand why you take a show off the streaming. It's because people are watching it, and right now there's so much stuff. And for an actor, that must suck because you're like, wait a second, it's a great show. So what, was Hightown a great experience? And do you know why they're taking it off? Because was it contractual or what happened?
I don't know why they're taking it off. It doesn't make any sense to me because Rebecca Cutter, who created Hightown, her other show is The Hunting Wives, which is a gigantic hit for Netflix. And once Hightown moves over to Netflix and then the Hunting Wives premiered, viewership for Hightown went way up. So it was driving eyeballs to all of Rebecca's work. So I don't understand, why on a streamer you have a show that's getting good numbers and that is attached to somebody who's creating a hit for you right now. I don't know why, but I can tell you that experience was great. Rebecca Cutter was a wonderful lady to work for, and I spent most of my time working with Monica Raymond, who was the lead in that show. And, I just had a special connection with her, and it's just one of those times when you work with an actor, and it's not like we did any kind of chemistry stuff through the audition process. But it just clicked once we started working together because we played partners in the fishery service at Cape Cod on that show. And she was just delightful. She's a dynamite actress. She's so talented, but just an even better human being. I really treasured that. And everybody on that show was a lot of fun. And, we got to work by the water. We did the first season in New York and in the Cape. And then the next two seasons were down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And then we did some locations up on the Cape, so we got to work in some great places with some great people, and the writing was terrific. Writing was really great on that show, so I had a great time.
And you also were recently on Chicago Med, and I believe you did a scene with Steven Weber, who, Steven, he's been on the show. It's so funny. I know him through Spencer Garrett, and they're like buddies. And
I've known Weber for a long time.
He's exactly what you think he is. Like I sent him a message on Instagram.
He is very authentic.
Yeah, and he sent me it back, and then I remember he was on his cell phone. He was walking to his hotel, and he's like, and I said, you get to your hotel first. You don't have to do it right now. It's fine. You don't have to do the show. And so you've known him. How did you guys meet?
Well, okay, so we met on that Tom Selleck pilot in Hawaii because his first wife at the time was one of the regulars on that show. So that's when I first met him. We were all in Hawaii doing that show. And then, in different auditioning rooms, we knocking around in LA, I'd see him. I did an episode of Wings that he was on, worked with him there. And, we have mutual friends and cross paths in different spaces, but we never actually worked together again until recently on Chicago Med. And that was such fun. He's obviously really talented and just a really good dude and a lot of fun to be around. He's a good guy. I'm happy for his success on that show.
Well, I think also when you've known someone for that long and you haven't worked with them forever, you still have that connection because you know each other. Mm-hmm. Like I would, remember when I would be on the road doing comedy, I would not work for an act for like 5 years. But as soon as we were sharing a comedy condo or hanging out at the club having a beer, you automatically, it was just like you were just talking yesterday.
Yeah, you slide right back in. Yeah.
So
no, it's great. It's a treat. It was the same thing with Weber. He said the first thing I think he said to me was, "God, we got to do this once every 30 years." We had a great time, and he's a good guy, and I'm hoping that character comes back. So we'll see.
Now you mentioned Reptile. Tell me more about this movie Reptile.
That was a fun experience. Benicio del Toro, Justin Timberlake, Eric Bogosian, they were all in that murder mystery thing that they also shot here in Atlanta. And a really interesting group of people. And, Benicio, who was the lead in there, I really was excited to work with him because obviously we all know his work, and he has a very distinct style about how he works, which is kind of underplayed, soft but intense and committed. And I thought, well, he's going to be fun. So again, it was one of those experiences where I was just looking forward to. I'm going to play in his world. I want to see what happens. And they ended up giving us this really cool, quiet, revelatory scene in a car where you're sort of all the bad stuff that he's been investigating. He reveals to me, his chief, and it was great to work with him. He's a really good guy, very kind to everybody. And it was just really fun. It was fun to work with Eric again because we hadn't worked together since Criminal Intent. And it was a pretty good little thriller. It was a cool movie. It did really well.
So what are some of the highlights when you feel of your career? People you worked with that you maybe never thought you worked with? I mean, you were in Spaceballs, so you got to work with Mel Brooks, right? I mean, that's something, even if it's what was it like that? Because Mel Brooks is a genius. He's amazing. I don't care. I would be an extra on Mel Brooks movie and be like, this is the best thing ever. What was it like to work with him?
It was a treasure. My wife and I just watched the new Mel Brooks documentary that Judd Apatow did, and it's wonderful. It's so wonderful, and it just made me so grateful because I did Spaceballs and I also did Life Stinks. Worst movie title ever, but great fun to work with Mel. Even Mel admits it was a terrible title, but he's so kind. And he's one of those guys that, he creates this world. He creates sort of the fun room where we all show up to work and just turns everybody loose. And it's just joyful and it's playful and it's incredibly creative. One of the things I learned doing Spaceballs is that you watch his comedies and you think they're all just kind of improvised and screwball and they sort of catch lightning in a bottle every time. Oh, no. They map out every beat, and sometimes every syllable to max the moments and max the jokes. And so I learned a lot about how he makes that stuff that looks really zany and spontaneous, or makes it look that way, but it is very tightly wound and is very precise with how they craft that. And I just think I think Mel Brooks is a national treasure. He's a good man. He's brilliant, brilliant. And I'm just so happy for all the good that he's brought to the world.
Now, who are some other people you work with that, as a young actor, you never thought you would work with? I mean, I sit there, I interview people and I interviewed Steven Van Zandt. I was like, holy crap, I'm interviewing Steven. I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and I'm a huge Sopranos fan. And
Me
you
too.
sit there and you go, oh my God, like, he's on Zoom like you. I'm like, and he looks exactly like he does with a bandana. And,
Sure.
But so for you, who are some people that you sit there and you go, wow, that was just such an amazing experience?
Well, as you brought up Steve and The Sopranos, I did an episode of The Sopranos. And that was, so I'll tell you a story. So we're on vacation, okay? So I drove the family of the kids in the minivan. We're up in Washington, D.C. We just landed in the hotel. Kids are all happy. We're going to have a great time. My phone rings. And I get that look from my wife, like, oh, damn it. And I go to the other room, I take the call, and I come back in there, and she's got that look like she's ready. She's ready. You're going to walk out of this vacation. And all I had to say was, it's The Sopranos. And she went, oh, geez. So anyway, I had to go audition. So from D.C., I drove up to New York the next day, auditioned, drove back. We finished the vacation, got the job. So I played this U.S. Marshal who was taking Johnny Sack out of jail for 6 hours so he could go to his daughter's wedding. And so we're at the church filming the wedding, okay? And I'm in this holding room in the back with everybody. Everybody. Gandolfini, Edie Falco, Stevie, Johnny Sack, everybody. And I had this moment where I picked up my phone and I went in the corner and I called my wife and I said, I'm on the fucking Sopranos, man. So that was a great moment. The other ones that I really treasure, because when I was a kid growing up in California, I wanted to be an astronaut. I got to do a couple of shows about the space program. I got to be in a show called The Cape that shot down in Orlando, and then I did From the Earth to the Moon that Tom Hanks did for HBO. And just to be a part of, telling the Apollo stories, because I played the surgeon, the flight surgeon. I mean, I remember sitting in front of the TV as a kid watching those things live at 3 o'clock in the morning because, it was later on the East Coast. And just to be a part of that was just a rush. And I got to meet Buzz Aldrin, who was our technical advisor. And I mean, that's one of those pinch me kind of moments where this is just too cool, man. I'm a lucky dude.
Give me one more that a person you work with, you couldn't believe, or just you sit there that sticks out to you.
Okay. Well, here's another one, and this is one of my favorite days of work ever. So I read Alan Alda's book, Never Have Your Dog Stuffed. I don't know if you ever read that. Great book, great read. And he talks in there about the concept of effective listening as an actor, where you listen in such a way that you allow yourself to be changed by what you hear. And that was very profound for me because a lot of actors, no matter how hard we try, sometimes you fall in that trap or you're just listening for your space to talk. But what that did is it kind of pushed me to listen for the information, listen to what's coming at me, and then let it land and respond. And so I started teaching in class when I was teaching class. So I go back to The Good Fight, and I got this scene, it's really good, 2-page scene with this other lawyer. We're firing the law firm from the Democratic Party. And I could tell it was going to be a heavyweight person, but I didn't know who it was until the night before when I got a call sheet, and it was Alan Alda. And I thought, oh, man, this is going to be great. So because of my affinity for his teaching about listening and everything, I learned that scene 6 ways to Sunday. So I could done it in my sleep with my eyes closed, because I just wanted to be there. I wanted to be present, to be with this guy whose work I admire so much, and his teaching, had such an effect on me. And it was a great experience. He was gracious. He was obviously really good. I felt like every take was its own thing. It was its own moment. It was magical. And I did get to the point where, because I try to be respectful of people and not get too personal because you know you're not going to be there for very long. But we'd gotten kind of comfortable, and I did at one point finally say, look, I have to tell you this. And I told him the story about the book and all that. And he was really touched by it, because what I learned is that for many years he's been teaching communication to people in education and in medicine and in business. And so much that they named the communication building at Stony Brook University after him. And so his teachings about listening and communication have become very, very meaningful for him. So that it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And, you know, it's one of those times when you're just really grateful to be where you're at.
So I have one final question. I always close the show with this. Looking back at your career and your life, and you can bring up personal, you can be up professional, but what makes you proud? You know, what when you look back, you go, what makes you proud? I mean, there's things, and you can do both, because, you know, a lot of times there's two different things. You know, there's your personal and there's professional. What makes you proud when you look back at your life so far?
Well, my family is what makes me the most proud. My wife and my girls are my legacy. They're the best thing that I'll ever do in my life, no matter what. And I'm very proud of that. But as far as my career, without question, the thing I'm most proud of is that for 42 years, I've been able to be a working actor, doing work that I'm very proud of with some really good people and making a good living, taking care of my family, put 3 girls through college, and given all of us a life that has been joyful and happy and healthy and good and safe and productive. And so, you know, there's a lot of people who in this business can't say that. And I'm most proud of the longevity that my work still continues to have. That the other part of that, too, is I still feel like my best days are ahead of me. I haven't really done my best work yet. And so that's the thing I'm most proud of, is to be able to call myself a working actor for that long and enable myself to take care of the people I care about.
This is great. That's such a great answer. People, you got to check out Mike. Go to his IMDb. It's Pniewski. It's got a great website. Go to his website. You know, I'm sure it was easy to get that domain because there's not a lot of Mike Pniewskis out there. I mean, I can't even get.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard.
I know. So people go, and also if you have Netflix, watch His and Hers. It's a great show. He's got a great part in it. Go back, go through his IMDb. Go back and watch Good Wife, all these good shows. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find 1,056 episodes there. You can email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. Also, if you go to YouTube, you can find my one show, Coop's Comedy Corner, produced by Comedy Trainwreck out of Philadelphia. I have some great comics, stand-up comics, Rich Scheidner, Wendy Liebman. You know, I've had actors, Reed Diamond and Kyle Secor, comedy writer, Steve Scrovan. We talk about comedy and the biz and just sort of like Cooper Talk. And finally, my other new show, me and attorney extraordinaire John Fagerholm. It's called Lawsuits and Lessons. We talk to entrepreneurs, and John brings into a law aspect to it. And it's really fun. I like co-hosting with him. So go and check that all out. And I'm Steve Cooper. Remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.